Welcome to Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. We are back, the same four weirdos that it should be. We're out of the multiverse for this week. Ruby and Dwayne aren't here. No promises that they never make a return, just in case they're needed in a pinch. Marc Valentine, fresh off of This Diz Live. How are you doing tonight, Marc?
Feeling like a variant, my friend. Feeling like a variant.
Is that a good thing or not a good thing?
Oh, it's a very good thing.
Oh, good, good. Robert, how are you?
I am fantastic.
Good, good. And Markie Mark, how are you doing? What's with the face?
You called him Robert. I was waiting for you to call me like Marquetta. Are you okay? Or Marquise?
It says Robert on my birth certificate, though. We're all right. I mean, that's my name.
Man, I've known you so long. I'd feel so uncomfortable calling you Robert. Anyways, Brian, I'm swell.
Marcus, how are you, Marcus?
I like Marcus. I'm good with that. I'm swell.
Swell. Perfect. All right, gentlemen. Well, let's get into it. We've got a lot to discuss. We are discussing what I thought we would be discussing at the end of this 6-episode arc, and we are only 2 episodes in, and we've already come a long ways with Loki, and we are already branching and bombing sacred timelines. There is a lot to discuss, so let's get right into it. We're going to let everybody give a chance to get in here. We've got Dwayne's here. Few people shuffling in, so good to see you. Smash that like button. Smash.
Yeah, say hi.
Button. Definitely let us know you're here. If you're here for the first time on Facebook, there's going to be a link in the comments that says in the post that click StreamYard.com/Facebook. So give them permission so we can see who's here, who's talking to us. Is that a Hulk shirt you're wearing, Marquetta?
I feel like, I didn't realize I don't have many green shirts, so I wanted to wear green, and then I figured we're talking Loki. I'm okay wearing a Hulk shirt.
It's fair. He pushed him onto the off the rainbow bridge, if nothing else.
Thank you all for getting that reference.
Frankie's here. I had to while we were watching it. I couldn't really pay attention. I'm confused. Help me, weirdos. You're my only hope.
Yeah.
That's a lot to put on us, Frankie, but let's get into it. So we start the episode going into Oshkosh in 1985 with a very much person that looked a lot like Catherine Hahn, Agatha Harkness. Did anybody else kind of get those feelings from that lady at the counter saying, hey, some of us need this? Kind of feels like a Comic-Con thing. We all feel like we need that kind of stuff. But we get that variant, and C20 is our is our Hunter C20 that gets captured eventually. But we get a needle drop in here. Marc Valentine, how did that make you feel, that needle drop? Was Bonnie Tyler, is that correct, Rob?
Yeah. I Need a Hero, man. That song makes everything better.
It does. It does. What'd you think of that?
It brought me back to Short Circuit too.
Yes, that song was in 3 movies, and that was one of them, and nobody gets that one.
If we're gonna be honest here, it really brought me back to Short Circuit 2, and I was like, when is the last time we got this song dropped in a show? And then I thought back to Johnny 5, which we're also getting on a side note. We're getting another shirt.
Last time I heard it dropped into a show was when Luke Skywalker showed up at the end of The Mandalorian, but that's a YouTube cut. Rob, so what are the other 2 movies, Rob, that it showed up in?
Shrek 2, which is the other one, in Footloose.
And Footloose. Oh, yeah. That's debuted, right? It was Footloose.
Is that still the greatest movie of all time?
Never was. Markie Mark, this entire opening scene, getting the variant, showing her enchantment charms, and we'll come back to that later on as well, but she's able to kind of put people under that spell, and it can pass from person to person. Was there anything in this opening scene in Oshkosh that stood out to you?
Frankie kind of beat me to the joke punch where I kept saying Oshkosh, bagosh. So yeah, there's Frankie. It was a good setup. I kept thinking, oh, good for Alabama, like developing and becoming a strong force in a couple of years, good for them. I don't know. That's all I had.
What are you talking about? Alabama?
And then it was
where is Oshkosh, Mark?
No, the beginning's Wisconsin.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I thought, wow, I should be put in the timeout box. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking. My bad. I fast forwarded a little bit.
No, you're good. That makes I was very confused. Not to call you out, but that
you're good.
A little bit more sense. But we've got. I love this time card, this score. We go right in from that needle drop into the score for this show and the time card and everything constantly changing. It really gives you the creepies, which I think is what it's going for. John's here. He says Footloose, only the greatest movie ever, according to Peter Quill. Somebody else has to share that opinion with Quill, I would assume, but definitely Peter Parker does not. So then let's move on. We go from Oshkosh and we go right into Loki talking to a not recording Miss Minutes. And she says that a Nexus event cannot be reset when it is past the red line, which collapses the entire timeline in all reality as we know it, or at least as the TVA knows it. This is a great way to give us a whole lot of information in not a lot of time, in a perfectly voice cast, everything. Miss Minutes catches my attention and the attention of all the kids on screen. Rob, I see you nodding along.
Tara Strong, baby.
Yep, she's great. She's great. And then her jumping back into the computer telling Loki to mind his manners while he's reading Swatner with a jet ski magazine. We're going to talk more about the jet skis later on. But they take Loki. They give him a jacket. Anybody else want that jacket? I need that jacket.
The Variant jacket?
The Variant jacket.
Absolutely, I want that jacket.
We get Loki explaining his powers, even though it's basically just image projection. But they go in and we learn officially what we talked about last week, that the future of Disney e-learning, that's Miss Minutes. Yeah, that's a great call there, Stephanie. Replaces Mark Hamill. The reset charges prune the timeline within the effective radius, giving time a chance to heal. We see how these charges work. They literally erase everything that was affected. It probably does the same thing to human beings, even though we don't really know it. Mark Valentine, anything with those reset charges or anything that really stood out to you there?
So I'll be, again, 100% honest. This is the aspect of any time that time travel becomes part of a show's narrative, that it really then just starts to bend your mind. This is the stuff that it really just, I had to take a step back and go like, wow, this is crazy. That I have to almost talk through it like 5 or 6 times. We really hadn't had a chance to do that this week ad nauseum like we normally do in our Weirdos chats. We didn't really flesh this element out. All I know is that these charges, when set off, if done strategically enough, can wreak complete havoc on the sacred timeline. And we'll get into that later. That seems to be what was the plan all along. But I really like that's the element of this where it just, I can't wrap my mind around all the permutations of what is happening right now. But that's what's so wonderfully weird about this show that just brings me back time and time again. It's just weird. I like it.
We get our wonderful timeline Loki trying to make his play, even though now knowing that he was making it up the whole time, when you go back and rewatch the episode and he says, I see a scheme, and in that scheme, I see myself. Like, he's just putting on such a show for that entire thing. But Markie Mark, when Loki's trying to make that play around, he says, my ears are sharp, all that kind of stuff when Loki's talking about just paying attention to everything. Is there anything that stood out to you within that, what Mobius was talking about when he says my ears are sharp too, or anything in that scene in the circus tent in 1985?
I mean, I walked away from that scene, Loki monologuing. He got caught monologuing, and I just liked Owen Wilson giving him that look of, you almost had me. Wow. You know, just, I thought Owen Wilson was he was my favorite part of that scene. It gave a lot of great one-liners, but Owen Wilson was wow ka-chow in that scene.
Wow.
We can update it right now. The wow counter still at 0.
Still at 0, man.
Heard a Mobius wow in this entire show. Wow. So I'm going to say that I have this in here. My ears are sharp too. Mobius says that back to Loki. They're getting very close to that red line. Loki's trying to make his play, saying that the Variant is just outside the tent. They want him to chase after Hunter C-20. I'm going to put this out there. I think there's a small likelihood that this is possible, but there was the reference last week where Mobius said that when Loki says to Mobius, I am smart, and he says, I know. And now he's saying my ears are sharp too. I'm just going to put it out into the universe, gentlemen. Is Mobius a variant of Loki? Does anybody think that that could be possible?
I have thought that. I think I'm going to say on this. I think anything's possible at this point.
Yeah, that's fair.
The name Mobius, if you'll indulge me, a Mobius strip is if you start on one side and without lifting the pencil, that you can do a complete loop in a Mobius loop. There's been a lot of people who have speculated that Owen Wilson's Mobius has been reliving this over and over and over and over again. That's why he's so calm, and he's really not, there's no elevation to him. And he might be interested to see if this next iteration is going to change it. It's almost like a Groundhog Day type of effect, where Mobius has been living this scenario time and time again. And if you are a time traveler, that makes a whole hell of a lot of sense, that you would be repeating time in one constant loop, so that this is not something that's new to him, in as much as there might be elements of it that might be different. And someone said, well, maybe that's why he's hearing out Loki this time around. It's because it was a little something different from the last iteration. So like Mackenzie just said, I'm not really sure where it's going. I'll be honest, like a lot of these other shows, like I felt like I could put my finger on it and say, this is where it's going to go. I have no clue, Mackenzie. I'm not the guy to ask this week because I'm kind of flabbergasted with everything.
Mark, I'm going to jump on that with you a little bit. First of all, shout out to Marvel for making it 1985. I'm sure that's always a Back to the Future nod whenever we go to 1985 in a time travel show. But I was also thinking, what if they kind of, what if this is not even the same Mobius? What if he doesn't even know he's reliving it? I'm sure that he's been erased from other timelines in general, like almost like a Men in Black flashy thingy type of thing, except I think you're erasing the whole person. Because when he was in, I'm sure we'll get to it, but when he was in Renslayer's office, I don't know if he knew that he was the one who kept putting the rings, but he's putting rings on that table before, as if I think it's always Mobius, but he keeps getting erased every time maybe he messes up or it goes too far.
I'm thinking, because he sees all those other trophies, the roller skates, the snow globe, and like you said, we're going to get to this, but we can get to it right now. And when he's in Renslayer's office and he's putting those rings on the table, he doesn't remember doing this. Is it him, or are there multiple hims?
Yes.
Is this the Mobius just simply assigned to TVA Earth events, and there's another Mobius that's assigned to somewhere else?
That's possible too.
Yeah, why would there only be variants of Loki? I mean, there would be an infinite amount of every single person in the universe, right?
I think that for anybody but somebody that was actually created by the TVA to keep order. It's possible, but I think there could be multiple. Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have a variant of Loki, you could have a variant of just about any.
Also, there's so many different. I don't want to melt everybody's brain, because part of me wonders if everybody at the TVA that works there is a variant of some sort. But also, when they were showing that video of like the different how variants occur, they were showing so many different versions of things. Like I think one person even turned into, in the cartoon, one person turned into a coffee mug when they were showing those cartoon pictures, which also makes me wonder if people could turn into completely other types of beings or objects.
Yeah. Well, when they were showing Loki variants of himself, there were complete other species of Lokis in that montage.
My favorite Loki, when they were showing the different variations of Loki, was the one that won like the Tour de France or the World Cup or whatever that was. He had the yellow jersey on with like the cup. He's like, hugging. Yeah, that made me laugh so hard. Markie Mark, what do you think about this entire Ravonna Renslayer Mobius interaction? Was there anything in that stuck out to you?
I mean, for someone who knows quite a lot, whenever he talks, it seems like he already knows the answer. It did raise an eyebrow when he couldn't remember the ring on the table. And also,
I thought that was maybe just him passing responsibility, but I mean,
I hope we get to hear more about the trophies and whatnot. I feel like that's a great little side scroll storyline. So those are a couple of things I walked away with.
Side scroll or scroll?
Scroll. Touche.
No, I don't think we're dealing with scrolls in this.
No,
No.
I don't either. Wait, hold on. Bank on it. It's Mephisto.
Oh my gosh. No, like you said the wrong word. It's Kang.
Yes.
Kang does seem more likely than Mephisto ever did, to be 100% honest. But what really stood out to me in this episode, looking at Renslayer specifically, is Mobius asks the question of how are the Timekeepers? This is when we learn that he's never met them either. He doesn't really know anything about the Timekeepers, and she's very vague every time she talks about the Timekeepers. Last week in episode 1, when she was talked about, I dictate the timelines according to their dictations. I'm as certain as I was, maybe I actually, that's not true. I can't be as certain as anything as I was that Sharon Carter was the power broker, but I'm pretty darn certain that Ravonna Renslayer is our Timekeepers. I don't think that there's anybody higher than her. I think she's doing a lot of different things. Shout out to Sean Gerber over at the MCU Fan Show podcast. If you're really looking to deeper dive than we're doing, go listen to him over there. He said, is it possible that everything that happens at the end of this episode, is that what releases Kang, or is Kang officially one of the Timekeepers? There's multiple different ways that you can look at it there, but Ravonna Renslayer is Hunter A23. We see that on her helmet later on. She's clearly a capable hunter. But beyond that, she just doesn't sit well with me, as flirty as she is with Mobius. Go ahead, Rob.
I was gonna shoot in with this. The way that like Ronan was the bad guy in Guardians, but he was working for a bigger Thanos. I wonder if she is going to be the main bad guy of this show, but she is working for a Kang or somebody else already. I'm positive she's a villain. There's also a small part of me that thinks Miss Minutes might be a villain in whatever form Miss Minutes is. There's something going on there too.
Yeah, it's going to be bad when Miss Minutes goes berserk next
Bryan,
week.
where do you fall on that? Because it's very interesting that you bring that up. I see this event as releasing Kang, as this is one of the things that releases Kang. And Kang in the books is all about conquering the various time branches that split out. Like, that's the thing, is he comes from the future to conquer and subjugate all these different branches.
But he doesn't want to erase them.
He doesn't want to erase them. Correct.
That's the difference.
So it makes a lot of sense that this would bring about Kang, and we know that he's coming in Ant-Man Quantumania. It would make a lot of sense. There's not a ton of film. Think about it. There's not a ton of films from this show till then that this seems like a really smart way to set up and introduce a Kang the Conqueror.
Jonathan Majors, when he was asked by Variety this past week if he was in Loki, he immediately responded with, I don't know what you're talking about. So that could be the easiest denial in all of history. I really think that if Kang shows up, so if you had to say, did Kang just get released, or is Kang behind this entire thing? Stephanie says Funko did just release the Renslayer with Miss Minutes Funko. I did pre-order that. It is available on Amazon to pre-order, but Miss Minutes might snap, and that's going to be interesting. If you had to say, did Kang just get released, or is Kang behind this as kind of the ultimate villain? I would have to lean toward Kang being the ultimate villain. I think that it's possible that Kang's enemies are keeping the sacred timeline to keep him away from being able to rule everything. But I think that Kang would want that timeline to make sure he wins. That's where I'm leaning, and I have no other reason to believe that. But I think, and just like we did in WandaVision, we thought about all these different things that it could be opening up. It is still just one series. We need to try and stay as narrowly focused as we can. It might set up all of this stuff, but it might not. WandaVision didn't give us all the X-Men. It didn't give us everything, but it's giving us stepping stones to everything that's going on. So just something to keep in mind there. Markie Mark, are we keeping your attention down there? You doing all right? You got any thoughts here?
I'm one of the audience members right now. I'm just so highly entertained.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Kang's awesome. Jonathan Majors is an amazing actor. I cannot wait to see him on screen, maybe sooner rather than later. but definitely an Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is coming in February of 2023.
Brian, I had a thought to say, what if we're expecting another 22 or 20 film arc for a villain? What if it's not going to be like that anymore? What
It
if
might not be.
Yeah, what if we get what if Kang is a villain, but he's a villain for 5 or 6 films and then we move on? I mean, we have so many new intellectual properties being added. They may not have a 20 film arc for a villain anymore.
Fine by me. I'm good with that. I would
Yeah.
try to get our stories done. The thing so great about the Infinity Saga is it was the first of its kind. The last thing you need to do is to go in and do another 3-phase, 20 films plus overarching character arc. I don't think that that's anything that I personally want. It sounds like we're all in agreement that we'd be okay if it was a 5 or 6 film or even 3 or 4 film deal, especially when you add Disney Plus to the mix.
Yeah.
I feel like we've already done that, so don't rinse and repeat. Do the Marvel thing where you're doing something different.
I agree.
And if you want to build out 3 or 4 films of multiple different villains and then come together in a Sinister Six type, I'm not going to argue with that either.
Please let Doom be one of them.
Well, I hope they get there, but let's let that. We're talking years down the line, so
Yeah.
let's not do that yet.
All right. Somebody's asking for it. I'm going to allow this for 1 minute. Robert, what does the TVA look like when you turn that logo upside down?
Very simply, I don't know if it's anything. If you turn the logo upside down, it very clearly says the name Val. And we know the Val was introduced in Falcon and Winter Soldier. She's going to have a role in Black Widow. I have no idea if she is involved in the TVA. It's very bizarre to me if they made the logo look exactly like her name upside down. That's all I can say about it.
I think that's just a gigantic coincidence, but some people in the comments were asking for it. We wanted to get that out there. You're not the only one that thinks it's possible. Val, this clearly would be over her head for me. Can you imagine Val introducing John Walker to the concept of the TVA? He'd be very, very confused.
I agree with that. It does, honestly, it doesn't make sense to me, but it's just so funny how clear it is. And then anybody just go look up the TVA logo, flip it upside down. It so clearly says Val. The T doesn't even really look like a T, which is what's weird.
All right, so well, moving on. Mobius is on his way out of Renslayer's office, and he's given an Franklin Delano Roosevelt High School pen. Is there anything here? Has anybody gone down any rabbit holes, or does anybody know what FDR High School means in the MCU?
That is the high school of Bucky and Captain America, Steve Rogers.
Yep.
It is an Easter egg. It's just a look at me. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Just like I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with Peggy Carter. I think they're just fun Easter eggs. You're dealing with time. You're dealing with all of the MCU kind of coming together at that vortex. I don't see it.
Well, then I gotta blow your mind for half a second. When we do get the timeline bombed at one point, I know we're going to get into this, but one of the places that they were talking about was somewhere in 1947, which would be strangely around the time that Cap probably went back in time to start his relationship with Peggy.
Not
So
only
I don't know.
somewhere in 1947, it was New York City.
Yes, it was New York City. I'm sorry, I didn't have all my I didn't have my charts out, but it might have something to do. Like there's no reason to argue. See, the amazing thing and the problem with this now is anything truly is possible. So you could even argue that scene at the end of Endgame when Steve is dancing with Peggy, that could be a multiverse version of Steve. That could be something that somebody else caused. The rabbit holes now are endless because the multiverse can be endless.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no. Comic books, one of the biggest challenges with comic books is keeping everything straight. Happy 616 day from this past week, everybody, by the way. The Marvel 616 universe is the prime timeline. It is the sacred timeline. But what makes especially DC Comics so hard to follow is you don't know what time frame that they're living within. So I think if we want to explore the multiverse, this is my personal opinion, and this is where I think Marvel's headed, is I think if we want to explore the multiverse, we will do it in individual storylines, but then at the end of everything, get us back to the main sacred timeline, that prime timeline. So if you skip something, you're not completely confused. So you're not having to say, okay, Spider-Man and Sam Wilson are in this universe while Doctor Strange and Wanda got sucked into this universe and they're never going to see each other until Avengers 5 when Kang brings them together. I don't think you're going to get anything to that extent within the multiverse timeline. At least I hope not, because the four of us are going to be able to keep track of that and nobody else.
Dwayne just asked if anyone wants to take it. Will these alternate timelines bring anyone back from the dead?
I don't think so, just for the sheer fact that it has to do with real people and actors. So you're like I don't see, like, maybe somewhere in the future you'll get some old Steve Rogers or, you know, a Robert Downey Jr. coming back. But if anything, I think you're going to see recreated versions of the characters so they can put new actors in, if anything. But I don't think you're going to see somebody back from the dead.
I called Brian Ferguson that morning and I said, how creative for Kevin Feige and the team that this is the perfect way to introduce variations of characters that you can recast them. And now the recasting is fully explained, that this is a different version, that they don't all have to be within the 616 timeline, that you can bring in a new version of the character and they can look and feel differently. And it can be explained as this is, you know, someone from the multiverse.
You're going to see Tom Cruise as Tony Stark in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's been rumored. I am confident that will happen, and it will happen for 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, that's the other thing. You're going to see a lot of weird cameos, I think, in the next few movies. Just very quick parts, because they can do this now. And what actor doesn't want to be part of this universe, even if it's for something like that, because they know how big it is now.
I'm kind of hoping Edward Norton pops up.
He's the one I don't think.
Eric Bana, maybe, all the way back from the Ang Lee Hulk days.
Oh,
I do want to give a shout out to my friend Sarah. She says, I'm hopeful that the FDR pen is a reference to Matt Fraction's Fear Itself run, which ties in with Thor, Loki, Asgard lore, and deals a lot with nightmares, which Mobius has already said that nightmares are a different division, and he would help Loki burn that place to the ground.
I'm pretty positive. Here's my take this, and I'll eat my words if I'm wrong. I think Nightmare is going to be in the Doctor Strange movie. I don't know if that's said, but I've been thinking that for a long time.
Didn't you say he was going to be in WandaVision too?
I was wondering if he was going to be in my. I did.
I'm kidding. Listen, I can't throw shade at anybody about WandaVision.
WandaVision taught me to not worry about the comics, and I'm trying to deal with what I think I see. So if they don't say the word nightmare for a reason, and like I'll say this again, go watch the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon on Disney Plus. And if you're a video gamer, the Lego games are all wonderful, but for this scenario, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, the main villain is Kang, and a lot of the places that were even bombed on the timeline that we're going to get to and talk about. You explore all those places with Kang as the major villain. So it just gives you some perspective. I'm sure it's not going to be the same storyline, but it'll at least give you perspective on what's going on.
All right, well, let's move on. Loki learns about Ragnarok, and he pushes Hulk onto the Rainbow Bridge. So first, I want to call out Loki studying in the library and getting shushed and taking offense to that was just great. I loved it. But then Loki learning about Ragnarok, and you actually feel bad for him because he's experiencing this of Ragnarok, and then he goes and tells Mobius what he learns, and he goes, yes, the destruction of Asgard, I'm very sorry. He goes, yeah, that, whatever. And then he moves on. But when he explains about pushing Hulk off of the Rainbow Bridge and pouring salt onto the salad, just this entire interaction of stealing Casey's drink to then dissolve all the salt. Mark Valentine, how did you experience all of this?
Wonderful scene. Very, very, very funny. I like him in this role. I think that the scenes that he's played, to Ethan's point too, where Ethan says, have I been surprised by Owen Wilson? He's been done surprisingly well for this role. He's a perfect scene partner for Tom Hiddleston. Like the two of them, their scenes that they share, they're fun. Like it's genuinely fun cinema to watch. The two of them work off of each other. Owen Wilson doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I've liked a lot of the stuff he's been doing for years. We all make jokes about him, and, you know, we do the ka-chow and we do the wow. But, I mean, Owen Wilson's really smart. He makes really good choices. He does great films. He knows what roles fit him, and he really excels in everything that he plays. So this scene was awesome for me. Kudos to Tom Hiddleston to Loki for shushing a shusher. Good job. Good on you. Like, shush a shusher right back. Give them their own medicine. And then, I like the scene. It was a lot of fun. But that's where this show is really, it's knocked it out the parks. It's not just the mind-bending stuff. It's really good scene work between the two of those guys. So this was my favorite scene from the whole episode.
Markie Mark, has Owen Wilson lived up to the billing for you?
I've been an Owen Wilson fan for a long time. I loved him in Life Aquatic, several other films. So I'm an Owen Wilson fan. Maybe not Cars 2, but he was barely in that. So maybe that's why that one wasn't that good. But anyways, I know. I think the salad scene was great because it was memorable. People could understand it. I felt so bad for Owen Wilson, though. He looked so sad about that. Did anyone else wonder? I know, my lunch. Oh, when he poured.
Who's ever cried over a salad, though? Come on, Owen. You're being a little dramatic. It's a salad.
Hey, Thor could have used that salad.
Oh.
I have. If we're gonna
ruin. Well, that's why he's fat. That's why he's fat. Multiverse was
Mark. If we're gonna be honest, I have cried over salad when they put blue cheese on it instead of ranch. That was a very dramatic situation for me. But I am waiting for Disneyland to announce the new Loki salad. So I'm expecting that to come to a food cart near you.
You've probably got a safe bet on that. That's probably true. How about you, Rob? Is Owen Wilson living up to it for you?
Oh, I love Owen Wilson in anything. He's doing fantastic. You don't even have to waste any more time talking to me. He can't do any wrong in my book.
It's hard to match the charisma of either of the two of them. I stepped on that. Go ahead, Mark Valentine again. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wow.
Thank you. It's hard to match the charisma of Tom Hiddleston, and it's hard to match the charisma of Owen Wilson. And they're not trying to outdo each other. They're both just so good. Loki acts in this particular scene, acts just so excited. And I love to be right. And then later on, we get Mobius doing the exact same thing. How excited he is to go into the field talking to Renslayer. It's just, man, they acted their butts off in these scenes with each other, and I just love it so much.
And then in the next scene, it's even better when he's in Pompeii, spouting anachronisms, and it's like, how are they? This scene was awesome, and then it's like, hold my beer. Let's go to Pompeii and make a total farce out of the annihilation of this city of Pompeii in 79 AD.
How smart is that, though, too? How smart is that writing, as that's it makes perfect sense. Like, not to call them out, but DC doesn't write that good. They always have some weird reason that something happens. This makes so much sense that a variant could hide in an apocalypse and the timeline's going to end. It's brilliant.
DC can't even remember who can fly and who can't and when that happens.
Shots fired. Markie Mark is going to come at you hard, man.
Wonder Woman 84.
I was just waiting for the Marvel fanboys to unnecessarily attack DC. Go ahead.
Says the man on a Marvel podcast. So we are.
I liked Man of Steel. Oh, no. Okay, go on.
That Pompeii scene, like you said, Rob, just brilliant, just amazing. And Owen Wilson saying we gotta take baby steps here and wanting to act like a bird, and Loki of we're from the future, right? Like the TVA sounds futuristic, like everything. But then we get it, like you said, it makes so much sense. They're taking these complex ideas and they're making them so palatable by putting it behind comedy in Pompeii, and just how excited and how cool Mobius finds this whole thing, but not, and we see this again later in Alabama, of not wanting to flaunt that in front of the faces of everybody who's about to die, because he actually has genuine compassion. Whether he was created that way or if he's learned that behavior, we don't really know yet, but he gets on Hunter D90 for basically just telling them, well, yeah, of course they're scared or whatever, but they shouldn't be scared of us. Just that compassion he has. But then Loki discovering that he's right, and just him holding his arms out, just looking so proud of himself. That Pompeii scene is just great. Patrick says Pompeii and its Volcano Day, slight reference to a Doctor Who episode. I think I got that reference. I do know the Pompeii episodes of Peter Capaldi before he was the Doctor. So, gentlemen, we are going to take a trip in the timeline. We're going to go to Denver, Colorado in 2002. James Williams does not know this about me, apparently, but I am from Denver, Colorado. And in 2002, I sat in a classroom where I learned how to be the responsible operator of the greatest beautiful union of form and function. I was legally licensed to pilot a jet ski. I have a same fascination with the jet skis that Owen Wilson has. Aren't jet skis awesome? That's all I've got here.
I think that this actually revealed a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why I think Owen Wilson is a variant. I think he has written a jet ski. I don't think this version of Owen Wilson in
You think that's why he got reset because he wrote a jet ski?
No, I don't think that's why he got reset. But I do think that he wrote a jet ski. I don't think that he randomly has this obsession with jet skis. I think you're gonna, as you go into the different multiverse, there is gonna be a multiverse version of him. I don't know if they're gonna show it or just explain it, but I don't think that this jet ski thing came out of nowhere.
He's going to write it before the end of this series, for sure. Markie Mark, I want you to take a look at the screen and read this comment from Stephanie Wyatt, and I want your real reaction. Blue cheese is greater than ranch.
I mean, if you like mold, sure. Why not?
Blue cheese has mold in it.
Kara has. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh man, that just the thought of it. Oh God, blue cheese. I think that's just no, gross. Ew.
Ethan, I didn't catch this. Ethan just said Owen Wilson is clearly a fan of Daniel Tosh.
Yeah, I don't get that reference.
I don't watch enough Tosh.0 to understand that reference. I didn't understand that reference. So explain it tell us. Explain that to me.
Kara has taken time out of her life of yelling at me about our Pixar rankings to tell us that her favorite part of that Pompeii scene is when Loki just yells nothing matters. So that worked out well.
Bryan, you're getting so much pushback for your Pixar rankings when ours weren't that different. Like, everyone's coming after you.
Well, Kara doesn't know you. That's the only reason for that.
Oh, that's fine.
So we get this entire conversation revolving around jet skis and Mobius really wanting to ride one, but knowing that it would throw off the timeline. He's not allowed to do it. I'm sure there's a way they can figure out how to do it. I do get shades of Tiger King and that big guy riding the jet ski. I hope we get Mobius riding a jet ski. But it comes with a great conversation about free will and are we really the only ones in the universe who are free? And it's going right back to what we talked about in the podcast last week of free will and just, is it predestined? Is it predetermined? And that seems to be where a lot of this is headed. And I do want to talk about this later on when we are talking about Lady Loki, Sylvie, and everything going on there. But does anybody else have anything? Mark Valentine, you haven't chimed in for a bit.
Well, I'm hopeful that we get some kind of jet ski chase scene a la Police Academy 5, which is easily the most epic jet ski chase in the history of cinema.
Hold up.
Mark, I am all about 80s random film references tonight.
Hang on. You're forgetting Speed 2 when it comes to jet ski, like fun. Also, the movie Deep Rising.
I feel like we should have a random Rushmore at this moment about the use of a jet ski in a movie.
I got you.
I don't think I have 4.
There it is. we switch brands.
Mark Valentine, top scenes.
All right.
More scenes of jet ski in film.
All right, so it's Police Academy 5 for sure. Speed 2 Mark's right. Speed 2 has to make it. Not quite a chase scene, but a exit from Ghost Ship when they jump off of Ghost Ship as it is about to explode. And man, I need a fourth.
Just go with Tiger King.
I'll go with Tiger King.
I think you got to go with either Baywatch or you don't mess with the Zohan.
Zohan, it's got to be, dude. So thank you, Zohan, for sure.
Oh my God, Waterworld. So Waterworld's on mine. Deep Rising, Police Academy 5, and
Speed 2.
Speed 2. Thank you.
Frankie Rosa just said, I think it was Police Academy 4. Police Academy 4 was Citizens on Patrol.
Citizens on Patrol. Mark,
Police
Frankie,
Academy
you
5
should
was in
know
Miami.
this. Frankie, you're obsessed with these movies. How are you, man? I'm disappointed.
Citizens on Patrol.
Citizens
That's
on Patrol.
Hightower's in the truck and he goes, yumma, 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 yumma.
Mark, hang on. I got to ask. Did you see Police Academy Moscow? That one?
I did not. 5 was it. I tapped out at 5. That was it.
All right, we're gonna have to set a time charge because we're getting too far off here. We're
Yeah, but I do need.
Oh.
This is going to be our bomb to the timeline of Matt DeFranco says which is better, Speed 1 or 2. I want to meet the person that says Speed 2 is better than Speed 1.
No, Speed 1 all day, every day. Tony Hawk,
well,
Academy 4 that he was.
All right. Well, we'll get back into it now. And
that was the most amazing variant, right? That was the most amazing split.
And we had the graphic. We had the graphic. It was perfect.
Yeah. Okay, Rob, let's get us back on track.
Let's do it.
That discussion of just free will and anything. Was there anything that stood out to you? And they go to the kablooey gum, and man, when they talk about Loki saying we had nuts and grapes on Asgard, and Mobius' response is just simply, "No wonder you're so bitter."
I mean, the humor, by the way they write the humor in is great. The scene's very interesting because to say nobody else has free will and they do have free will, I mean, I think that makes anybody uncomfortable. None of us want to believe that we're not in charge of our own destiny to some extent. So the whole thing is uncomfortable already. But obviously that doesn't make sense. They either don't have free will or everybody, they're trying to shut down free will. The multiverse is free will, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Mobius says, doesn't he have like the ability to change? And Renslayer just says, if the timekeepers say it's okay, that's not okay. You're not in charge of your destiny. You're not. And again, we're going to get to that when we get to Lady Loki. But we go to Kablooey Gum. It leads us to Haven Hills, Alabama, 21050, the home of Roxcart, which is a Walmart spinoff of the Roxxon Corporation. It's interesting that vacuums have not gotten any more technologically advanced in these 29 years.
We have reached the peak of vacuum technology. It's true.
Apparently.
The Dyson vacuum is the best it will ever get. That's it.
I do love the dad joke of, if you're cleaning a vacuum, are you in fact the vacuum cleaner?
Whoa.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Deep thoughts.
Wow.
But gentlemen, wouldn't you also buy azaleas during a hurricane?
Absolutely. Listen, we see this all the time. Like, we had people putting gasoline in Walmart bags like 3 weeks ago. Whenever there's chaos, man, you got to strike when you can. It's a good planting season. The soil would have been, all ready for you.
Loki using his magic to not have squeaky shoes was great. But this is where we meet our first Loki variant, who's under this enchantment spell, and it then immediately passes to Hunter B-15. Did anybody else get tricked for 15 seconds thinking that Hunter B-15 was the Loki variant? Or did you follow what was going on?
I followed that. I didn't know if she took over the body at that point, or if she actually created a person. But I knew it was Loki, but I just didn't know in what. Did that make sense? Did I say it right?
Yep. It's cool that she can pass that enchantment on from person to person while still being able to perform her role within her own physical body. I mean, even Loki, when we see him image projecting in the Avengers or Thor or anything like that, he can't physically pick anything up or do anything. So this enchantment is a big deal. She can get double the work done, and she's constantly traveling back to this timeline because she's got everything she needs. Apparently Roxcart really does cover everything. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Brian Ferk says, "Is Lady Loki a bad?" I don't think so.
We're getting to Lady Loki, so sit tight for just a minute. I know we've gone a little bit quick through everything tonight, but I wanted to give us a little bit of time on the back end to discuss Lady Loki, who she might be, and any predictions we have for the future. But they find Hunter C-20. She's saying it's real. She's mumbling to herself, "It's real. I gave it away. I gave away where the timekeepers are." This puts a big hole in the balloon that I have of saying the timekeepers are not real, because she seems to think that they are real and where they're hiding. Markie Mark looks like something there.
Do we really think she knows who and where the timekeepers are?
Other than Hunter B-15, she's the highest we've gotten in the alphabet to the top. So she's at least, because there's like a D90 and all this. I mean, we know Renslayer is A23. So the higher letter, the more closer to A you are, the higher up you are, even though she looked really, really young.
Touche.
Yeah, but I mean, if Owen Wilson hasn't met the timekeepers, what leads you to believe that she has? She might be under the impression that she knows where they are. I didn't put a lot of stock in that line itself, other than to think she probably just gave up the location of where they disseminate from. That's it.
And like you said, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think she gave up where she believes they are. I don't think that's actually where they are.
Yeah, I'm very not convinced if it's going to be if they're not going to exist. Like I think I don't know if that's going to be a thing. It's also very weird, not to get too far off it, but you don't really see much magical or technology things except for the fact that they can time travel and set these time charges. And I don't know if the color means anything. Miss Minutes is orange. Those time charges are orange, and when they go through the portals, they're orange. Like part of me wonders if somehow
they go purple when they are actually set off. They're purple.
I know they're purple. Yeah, you're right. Which is the same. I always think I think the colors, but there's something about that orange color in Miss Minutes. Like I wonder if that gives Miss Minutes power or something like that.
Rob, orange, you're gonna ask why? Maybe it's important.
Does anyone have any orange slices?
Wow.
Oh man,
that hurt, Brian.
No, I think Rob's onto something about Miss Mean. Everything in the TVA is orange. I mean, even the logo's orange. Everything like that. Kang is not orange, but we'll learn more about that later on. But as that enchantment is going from person to person, we meet Randy, and Randy says, and this is why I called you Robert at the very beginning of the show, is I wanted the reaction from you, and instead I got it from Markie Mark. But just because she says, "Don't call me Loki," doesn't mean she's not a Loki variant. It seems like it's a name that she's sworn off, and it's not necessarily a name that she never was. So I don't buy stock into her being only Sylvie and not being any sort of a Loki variant. Rob, what do you think of that?
I don't disagree with you. I might as well just say it now since we're here. She is either exactly that, a Loki variant from a different timeline, or if you do know your comic book stuff, which can sometimes be right, sometimes be wrong, she could have something to do with the Enchantress. I think it's the second adaptation of the Enchantress.
The original Enchantress was an Asgardian, and this one is from Oklahoma.
Yes, and I believe that she also got her powers from Lady Loki in the comics.
Yes,
the Enchantress. Yep. So, and just in case you didn't know, if you did your deep dives on Google or anything, in one of the Spanish credits on Disney Plus of this show, they had the name Sylvie as her character. That is the name of the Enchantress in the comics. I don't know if they're going to make her. She also has slightly different powers than a Loki, which could also explain that, or she could just have those powers because she's a variant.
Well, what we might be getting, Rob, is exactly what we got in WandaVision, which is the books inspire a variation of what has come to expect. We didn't get the House of M in WandaVision, but even the characters, like they said, that the House of M inspired a lot of aspects of this show. I think that what we're getting here is probably something similar. It might not be the Enchantress in pure book form, but we're getting some kind of mishmash of what they're doing on screen and then being inspired by that character from the books.
She's not worth getting to.
Yeah, well, and whether it is or isn't, though, it's good. The character is going to have the same effect. So whether the name is Loki or Don't Call Me Loki or Enchantress or Randy, the character is going to have the same effect.
Mark Valentine, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think that what we're going to wind up getting, and again, I was the worst one. I throw myself under the bus. I was the worst one to go down these rabbit holes. And I was so convinced that we were getting a screen version of the House of M that I went down the path and said I wouldn't be shocked if we got Professor X by the end of this, because House of M has so many X-Men in it, and that I bet heavily on the X-Men being introduced. Then we get Ralph Boner, and I'm like, we've got Quicksilver. It's happening. Like, I'm right. I'm 100% right. And it was so wrong. This is, again, Rob, I understand what you're saying, but I think this is just a misdirect. I think that they know that when they do stuff like this, it's an Easter egg and it's a nod and a wink to the people that have been reading these books for so long. See, he left. I made him mad. He left. He's like, you know what?
They did go back in the credits and they added Laufey daughter as her last name. So I mean, I don't think that I don't think it's much more than that personally.
I think it's an Easter egg. I think it's just fun. I don't know if it's, and I'm sure there might be elements of the Enchantress that they attribute to her. And again, I might totally be wrong. It might be the Enchantress and Rob is 100% right.
But like I said, it doesn't matter. I don't think it really matters for the story, whether they call her Enchantress or Loki. It's not going to matter. The character is going to be what the character does regardless.
Ethan says, could there be variants of variants? No, there's just another variant, I would say. I don't think there could be a variant of a variant. So this is where I want to get a little bit deep. And this is with the help of the aforementioned MCU Fan Show podcast. And Sean put this out there, and I want to put this in front of our audience because it made the most sense to me of this. And Brian Ferguson brought it up earlier too. He said, is Lady Loki a bad? I don't think so. I think the only antagonist we've met in this series is Ravonna Renslayer and the TVA. I think, and again, this I attribute this to Sean, is his way of thinking, and now my way of thinking is that this Loki, she has conquered so much of just everything, and there's been multiple versions of Loki, that the Loki we know is kind of the worst version of him because he's constantly failing and living within the time frame that he's supposed to. We have all these other Lokis that won the World Cup and the just all those different ones. And this one has said to the point of you so much cannot determine my future that I cannot change, that I'm literally going to change everything about myself, that I'm going to be gender fluid. I'm going to do whatever I want. I can be whoever I want to be because it goes against exactly everything that I'm supposed to be for you. She says, this is not about you. This is not about Loki. Sean does build that out a little bit better than I just did, but I think that there's something to that. I think she has to be a version of Loki. If they're going to take the name of Sylvie and do some sort of mishmash, because Hela in Ragnarok was very much, she was just as much like a Gore the God Butcher type. She even quoted some of his lines.
Wow, good.
Now they're going,
Brian.
Now they're going with Gore the God Butcher in Thor: Love and Thunder, so we'll see what they did. But there's too many characters in the comic books just to adapt one just to be like that. So this Lady Loki could very well be Enchantress mixed with Lady Loki mixed with a bunch of different ones. So just because the name Sylvie's out there doesn't mean anything to me. The Enchantress isn't that interesting enough of a character to build an entire series upon her.
Oh, and I agree with you. I don't know if they would be introducing that for later things, but I also agree though she's not the villain. And you can, I think you can kind of see that. You're saying there's no free will. Well, bam, you're the bad guy. If you're taking away people's free will,
Correct.
you're the bad guy. It's very easy. Agatha Harkness, she killed Sparky. She's the bad guy. Like there's a couple of things. That's it.
Go ahead, Markie Mark. Sorry.
What I was going to say is never underestimate Marvel's ability to make a character interesting. If I had asked you about Rocket Raccoon, mid-90s, late 90s, nobody talked about it. Marvel reinvented that character. The movies reinvented that character. Now it's an extremely loved character. So never underestimate them. I think Enchantress is a deep storyline, especially with, I think if they hadn't announced Doctor Strange and the title especially, I don't think we would have been thinking of Enchantress, but man, she would play so well in that movie.
Sophia DiMartino is awesome. I hope we have a good future with her. I don't know Enchantress well enough to tell you what her involvement is. I know she's been part of the Dark Avengers. I know she has something to do with the new Avengers. It makes a lot of sense that she's still coming. I hope she's more. Loki seems like it's going to have multiple seasons as well. So there's many different ways that they can go. Mark Valentine, go ahead.
To circle back to something we were talking about earlier, my gut reaction when I saw her was, again, this is how you can introduce new forms and variations of characters for the next phase. Who knows how long a lot of these original characters are going to stick around? I mean, they're actors. They renegotiate contracts. They have specific runs that they just, and they always get asked, how many more films do you have in this role? You know, who knows how long Tom Hiddleston's going to continue to fill the role of Loki. So my initial gut reaction when I saw her was, this is now another creative way to recast the role of Loki and keep Loki in the MCU, but do it so that you're introducing a new character. And it's also a fun way to do it. You know, that we see that you're going to get Jane Foster coming on as Thor. Who knows how long Natalie Portman's going to be for the MCU?
I'm calling it now. One film.
It's one. I think it might be one and done, because when she uses her powers, they've already said that it accelerates her cancer diagnosis.
Yep.
So I don't think she's going to be long for it. But with the multiverse, that's the brilliance of this, is that you can recast roles, and now you can continue to have Iron Man in the MCU. It won't be RDJ, but you can have Iron Man.
Be Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Riri Williams is coming. She could be the next Iron Man as well. As long as this all isn't one elaborate story to set up a multiverse just to have the exit of Spider-Man from the MCU being so clean cut, then I'm good. We need to keep Spider-Man in there. But we get quite the amount of time charges. They go through those portals. We get another mustache. This time he's working at the TVA. It's not David Langle. It's not Phil Jones from WandaVision, but it's a pretty good mustache. And he says the lines of somebody just bombed the timeline. That's a pretty big way to put it. We see multiple different timeline variations that are happening. Again, is she the bad guy? Not necessarily, but we did see what these charges can do. So is she killing people? What is she doing? What is she resetting? We'll probably find out next week. But I want to go through the list of different timelines that we saw. We saw Niflheim, which is where the Valkyrie took on Hela. Nowhere from Guardians of the Galaxy. Vormir, where the Soul Stone is with Red Skull. Asgard. Sakaar, which is where Jeff Goldblum's hanging out. Ego, the entire living planet. Titan. Hala, where Captain Marvel is. Xandar from Guardians of the Galaxy. Jotunheim. And then we go all across Earth from Rome, Lisbon, Madrid, New York, Tokyo, Beijing, even in England in 2006. We've got multiple different timelines that are being set up here. And I don't think the point of this show is to tell us how we're going to fix each individual one. I don't think we're going to all these locations, but I think we're just going to see how these timelines are branching. And it's going to be insane. Rob, how was your mind racing during that? Because like I said, this is how I expected the season to end, like not episode 2.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I thought at the end of this, the multiverse is going to be open, and then we're going to go into everything. She's basically opened the multiverse now, so I don't know what these last 4 episodes are going to be. My brain went to that video game because I noticed those places, and like I said, so many of those places are in that Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 video game, which is what I was kind of like, we're getting the Kang. I don't think it's going to be on the Loki show, but that's where we're heading. I don't know what changes they're going to make yet. I don't know how they're going to tie it together. I'm so freaking excited. I'm more excited about this than I was WandaVision.
Mark Valentine.
Yeah, dude, I can't say anything. I just got really excited. I saw those branches coming off of the sacred timeline, thinking to myself, this is so fun. This was the moment that I was in. And I wish, again, that, and I understood it, WandaVision was a sandbox to play in, and we didn't really get this kind of payoff until the very end of it. But that's what we also loved about WandaVision, that it sets us up perfectly to get really geeked out about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This makes me geek out about, we still have 4 episodes, guys. And like, this is only episode 2, and we're going to start to see the multiverse rip open. Awesome.
Markie Mark.
I I'm trying not to get my hopes too high, kind of like I did with WandaVision, where I'm like, where's this door going to go? Where's this door going to go? Because there's no promises they're going to give us any big payoffs. There's no promises they're going to explain everything that just happened. They could just say, we're going to stick with one of those branches and not explain the rest of the tree that just was created. And I'm just trying to live in the episode moment.
I think we'll find out why she chose every timeline that she chose. So from that standpoint, I don't think we're going to ignore all the other branches, but the one. But I do think we'll find out why she chose each individual one. We're not going to visit them all. There's no way we're going to go to Vormir and Ego and Sakaar and Asgard and everywhere. But I'm very excited to learn more about her and who she is, where she comes from, how long she's been on the run. Just the entire idea of her living in Apocalypse is just, man, it's so cool. Like, it's so cool.
And smart.
We'll go quick around the horn. Any predictions? Anything you really, really want to see, Rob?
The one thing I will say, and just going on, they've introduced now in Endgame that the way you time travel in the Marvel Universe is through the quantum realm. So I think that is going to play. I don't know if they're using the quantum realm right now to time travel or not for sure, but I am pretty positive that there's already aspects of that going on. So I will throw that. Renslayer and Miss Minutes are bad. I don't know to what extent.
Markie Mark.
I have we seen that fan theory that's out there where it's the city in the quantum realm that everybody thinks is the
any shot that it's true, but I've seen it.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch. It was from Ant-Man, right? It wasn't from I need to go back and watch it to see if that city is in the background there. All this is just getting me more and more excited for Quantumania. So I'm excited.
Marc Valentine.
Oh, yeah, Frankie. Oh, I can't wait for that show. Sorry, go on.
Will we do an episode for Spidey and his amazing friends when it starts on Disney Junior? August 6th, correct, Mark?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Marc Valentine, any predictions, anything you want to see?
I have 0 predictions. I am just here for the ride.
What's going on in this Diz Life land?
We're drinking around the world this week.
Nice.
Dwayne and I are going to talk about my epic attempt to complete my first lap around the world.
I love how you say attempt. Doesn't sound like you succeeded.
We're not going to spoil it. Got to listen to the episode to find out if I made it or not.
Rob, where are you playing this week?
I only have Friday night I'm at Boathouse 8:30 to 11:30, and Sunday I'm playing at a Lost Bros event from 1 to 6. I think the event's 1 to 6. I'm playing around 2 o'clock at Ivanhoe Brewery in Orlando. If anybody's around, free event for the family.
Markie Mark, what's going on at United We Fan?
Well, we wrapped up part 1 of our Indiana Jones Epic Podcast Spectacular. Last week was part 1, where a good friend of the show, Matt, joined us, who's an Indiana Jones enthusiast. John, if you're listening out there, thank you for the artwork. Check him out, Vertigo Giant. Matt, all of us here hope you're doing okay after he recorded the episode. Sadly, he was in a car crash. He's okay. His car didn't quite make it, but we hope for a speedy recovery, and shout out to him. He did our poster artwork for part 2 of the Indiana Jones Epic Podcast Spectacular. So tune in. We definitely celebrate 40 years of Indiana Jones fun, and we talk about Indy 5.
Hey, lady, you call him Dr. Jones.
Part-time.
Part 2 of the Indiana Jones Epic Podcast Spectacular was finished in its edit tonight. It will be dropping this Wednesday. And Matt just asked, will we be doing anything for Black Widow? The answer to that is absolutely yes. However, we don't know what that's going to be. I am going on vacation the weekend that Black Widow drops. I'm going to try to do Loki episode 5, Earth's Mightiest Weirdos from upstate New York. But we'll be doing Black Widow. More details to come on that, Matt. But go see Black Widow sooner rather than later. You can pre-order it on Disney+.
We're going to give everybody at least 2 weeks, though, right? If not more.
We'll give a spoiler warning.
Yeah, we'll give a spoiler warning. I don't know when to discuss it, but we'll sidebar on that one.
When you say the episode of Indiana Jones drops, to be clear, are you going to slice a suspension bridge with a machete? because that's how I'd like to see it drop, if it's possible.
Kali, see you in hell.
What are you doing?
Just remember, you need a ticket to listen to the show, and we know what happens if you don't have a ticket. You get tossed
For all time.
Always.
Always.
always.